I've been stuck in my head, replaying every detail, every moment, every mistake. No matter how much time has passed, I can't stop thinking about her, about how it all ended. It's been 15 years, and I still feel like it was yesterday. When I was 20, I met Mia. She was 19, and she was different from anyone I had ever known. She had this quiet confidence, a way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. Her dark hair caught the light in shades of red and purple. Her brown eyes seemed golden at times, and she had this one dimple that only showed when she smiled a certain way. She was smart, driven. She knew exactly what she wanted out of life. She wanted to be a doctor, a pediatrician. She talked about it with so much passion, as if she was born for it. And more than anything, she wanted a family. A home tucked away from the chaos, but still close enough to be part of the world. For 2 years, we were inseparable. I met her family. Her dad, a cop, gave me that typical hard stare at first, but he warmed up to me. Her mum loved me instantly. Even her younger siblings would drag me outside to play whenever I came over. She met my parents, my brothers, and somehow everyone just clicked. Even my dog, who barely liked anyone, followed her around like she was the only person that mattered. And at the time I thought I wanted everything she dreamed of. A future together, marriage, kids, a whole life built around what we had. I loved her, or at least I thought I did. But sometimes love isn't enough. 2 years in, something started to shift inside me. At first I didn't even notice it. It was subtle, creeping into my thoughts when I least expected it. I started dreading the idea of having kids. Maybe it was being around my younger cousins, hearing the tantrums, the screaming, the constant chaos. Maybe it was realizing how much responsibility it actually meant. But the more I thought about it, the more it made my stomach twist in knots. I started seeing fatherhood as a trap. I wanted to travel. I wanted freedom. I wanted money to spend. On myself, not on diapers and daycare. One night after a few drinks, I finally said it out loud. So I told Mia everything, that I didn't want kids, that I couldn't imagine being a dad, that the thought of it made me sick. She went completely still, and then, in the calmest voice, she said, "I won't try to change your mind, but I'm not giving up my dreams." I laughed, scoffed, told her, "Well, we're not having kids." She stood up, packed a bag, and before I even understood what was happening, she said, "You might not want them, but I still do. I won't force either of us to change because in the end, one of us will be miserable." That's when it hit me. She was leaving. I panicked. I tried to talk her out of it, argued that she was making a mistake, but she wouldn't budge, so I got angry. I insulted her, told her she was weak, that she was throwing away her career just to be a mum, that it was stupid to want kids, and when none of it made her stay, I lost control. I punched the wall, kicked a door, threw whatever I could get my hands on. She just stood there, watching, me not saying a word. Then she walked past me and she was gone. By morning, I had lost the only person who ever truly loved me. It didn't take long for everyone to find out. My mom cried when she heard how I reacted. My dad barely looked at me. My brothers? They called me an idiot. My younger brother, who had been in college with Mia, told me I was lucky she hadn't, called the cops. And honestly, he was right. But back then, I didn't see it that way. I told myself I did the right thing, that I had dodged a bullet, that I was free. For the next 15 years, I lived my life the way I thought I wanted. I traveled, I worked, I had money, freedom, all the things I thought were so important. But relationships, they never lasted. Every woman I dated felt like a shadow of Mia. No one compared. Meanwhile, Mia had moved on. She became a doctor. She got married, had kids. My younger brother still kept in touch with her for a few years. After we broke up, he even invited her to his wedding. She declined to avoid the drama, and now I'm back in town, the same place where we fell in love, the same place where she still lives. And suddenly, I can't stop thinking about her. I miss her. I miss the way she smelled like vanilla and strawberries, the way she laughed, the way her hair shimmered in the light. And I need to see her again. I finally did it. I reached out. I didn't expect a response, but she answered. We talked, caught up. And then I asked if she'd meet me. She said yes. I was nervous. I bought her favorite flowers, wore the cologne she used to love. I rehearsed what I wanted to say. And when she walked into the cafe, it was like nothing had changed. She was still Mia. Older, wiser, but still her. We talked about life, about work, about family. And then she told me something I wasn't expecting. She got married 4 years after we broke up, had 2 daughters, and then her husband died. She had been a widow for 7 years, raising 2 kids on her own, and suddenly I realized she had gotten everything she ever wanted, just not with me. I asked her if she ever thought about me. She hesitated. Then she admitted. After we broke up, she was devastated. She had built a future with me in her head, and I had destroyed it overnight. She even tried to convince herself she didn't want kids. But no matter what, she couldn't give up on that dream. And that's when I knew. I had lost her a long time ago. I apologized, told her how much I regretted everything. She forgave me. She had forgiven me years ago. And then I asked the one question I shouldn't have. Would you give me another chance? She hesitated. Then she said, I don't mind you being in my life, but if you want anything more, you have to earn my trust again. And just like that, I had hope. Hope that one day I wouldn't just be a memory in her past, but part of her future. And this time I won't mess it up. Hearing Mia say she'd allow me back into her life was like a second chance I never thought I'd get. But I knew it wouldn't be easy. She wasn't the same 19-year-old girl who used to dream about a future with me. She was a woman who had built her own life without me, a life that I had once refused to give her. I told her I'd prove myself, that I'd show her I deserved to be part of her world again. She gave me a small nod, but I could tell she wasn't convinced. She wasn't going to make this easy for me. And honestly, she shouldn't. The next few weeks were a slow process. We started texting a little more. It wasn't anything deep, just small talk, catching up here and there. Sometimes I'd send her an article about something I knew she liked, a funny memory we shared, or even just ask how her day was. She always responded, but it was clear she was keeping some distance. I didn't push. I let things unfold naturally. One day she finally let me meet her daughters. I hadn't expected that. She told me to meet her at a park where she usually took them after school. When I got there, I saw her sitting on a bench, watching as 2 little girls played near the swings. And that's when it really hit me. She had a life I was never part of. Her daughters weren't just some concept or idea. I was looking at them, laughing, running, playing. She had gotten everything she wanted, and I had never been there to see it happen. She introduced me as an old friend, and I could tell she was watching me carefully, studying my reactions. I kept my distance, smiled, made polite conversation. The younger one was shy, clinging to Mia's side, but the older one was more curious. She asked me questions, testing me in the way kids do when they're trying to figure someone out. It was strange. For years, I had convinced myself that I hated the idea of kids, that I had made the right decision all those years ago. But sitting there, watching them, hearing their tiny voices as they giggled and played, I didn't feel trapped. I didn't feel sick. I just felt sad. The more time I spent talking to Mia, the more I realized something I had never wanted to admit. I had been wrong, not just about her, but about everything, about what I wanted, about what love really meant. Back then, I thought love was about having the same dreams. But that's not true. Love is about respecting someone's dreams, even when they aren't the same as yours. Mia had been willing to sacrifice her dream for me, and I had never even considered sacrificing mine for her. I started reflecting on my past, the way I had sabotaged every relationship I'd had since Mia, how I had pushed people away, refused to settle down, convinced myself I was better off alone. But sitting across from her, listening to her talk about her daughters, I realized something. I wasn't better off alone. I had just been afraid of commitment, afraid of responsibility, afraid of growing up. And in that fear, I had lost the one person who truly loved me. Mia and I continued to talk. Some days she'd message me first. Other days I'd reach out. There was something unspoken between us, a familiarity, a comfort that had never really gone away. But there was also something new, caution. She wasn't the girl I once knew, and I wasn't the same person I had been at 20. One night, I finally worked up the courage to ask her the real question on my mind. Do you think we'll ever have another shot at this? At us? She was quiet for a long time. I could see the thoughts turning in her head, the weight of everything. We had been through pressing down on her. Finally, she said, I don't know. It wasn't a no, but it wasn't a yes either. She told me she wasn't sure she could trust me with her heart again. That while she had forgiven me, she couldn't forget what happened all those years ago. You left me behind once, what's stopping you from doing it again? And the truth was, I didn't have an answer, because deep down, I knew she was right. To hesitate, I had to prove that I wasn't the same person, that I wouldn't run the moment things got hard, that I was willing to do what I had refused to do before, build a life with her. Not just for her, not just for her daughters, but because I finally wanted it too. I don't know what will happen between Mia and me. Maybe we'll fall back into something, maybe we won't, but for the first time in years I feel like I'm moving in the right direction. I can't erase the past. I can't undo the hurt I caused. But what I can do is be better for her kids, for myself. And maybe, just maybe, one day, she won't just be the one that got away. She'll be the one that came back. And this time, I'll be ready. Life doesn't give us rewinds, but sometimes it gives us second chances. Not in the way we expect, not wrapped in a perfect bow, but in a way that forces us to prove that we've changed. Mia and I kept in touch. Slowly, steadily, we started seeing each other more often. It wasn't like before. There were no grand gestures, no romantic confessions. It was careful, cautious, slow. She let me into her world, little by little. Sometimes she'd invite me to grab coffee after her shifts at the hospital. Other times I'd see her at the park with her daughters. I never pushed for more. I let her set the pace, and over time something started to shift. I found myself changing, not because I wanted to impress her, but because I wanted to be better. For the first time in my life, I wasn't thinking about what I wanted to avoid. I was thinking about what I was willing to build. But the past has a way of creeping in when you least expect it. One night, Mia asked me something that caught me off guard. If I had given up my dream back then, would you have stayed? I wanted to lie. I wanted to tell her I would have, that I wouldn't have left her miserable and resentful. But we both knew the truth. No, I admitted. I would have left anyway, just later. She nodded, like she had always known the answer. That's why I walked away, she said, because I knew, even if I fought for us, you wouldn't have stayed. Hearing her say it hurt, because she was right. I wanted to believe that love alone would have been enough, but Mia had known better. She knew that love without shared dreams, without respect, without the willingness to sacrifice, wasn't enough to build a future. And now, I wanted that future. But the question was, did she? I asked her one last time. Do you think we could ever really have a second chance? She hesitated, not because she didn't care about me, not because she didn't see the effort I had been making, but because she had 2 little girls at home who came first. I don't know if I can let myself love you again, she admitted, and I don't know if I want to take that risk. It wasn't the answer I had been hoping for, but it was the truth. And the truth was all I had ever really wanted from her. I could have walked away, could have told myself it wasn't worth the effort, that if she didn't want to jump back into something, there was no point in sticking around. But for the first time in my life, I understood that love isn't about guarantees. It's about showing up, even when you don't know how things will turn out. So I told her, I'm not going anywhere. Even if we never end up together again, I just want to be in your life. For the first time that night, I saw something shift in her expression, something softer, something hesitant, but hopeful. Then let's start with that, she said, and see where it takes us. I don't know what will happen next. Maybe one day she'll trust me enough to love me again. Maybe she won't. But for the first time in 15 years, I'm okay with not knowing, because the difference between who I was then and who I am now is that this time I'm not waiting for a perfect future. I'm just grateful for the chance to be in her present. And if that's all I ever get, then maybe, just maybe, that's enough.